What does Alabama, Lugs, have to do to beat Georgia? The last time that they played at Jordan-Hare and had a wild ending with the drive with no timeouts just to get it to overtime, and they went in 4 overtimes. They went in and they beat Georgia, and eventually losing to them in the national championship game. That's the last time Georgia's lost. So what does Alabama have to do, and what can they do? What do you think they're good at that will cause Georgia problems in this championship game coming up?
Well, they're so different than some of the other iterations that have taken on Georgia, especially from a natural passing stance of who they are as an identity offensively. As much improvement as Jalen Milroe has shown, he's not the natural passer of a Tua. He's not the natural passer of a Bryce or a Mack, and that's fine. And they found ways to work around that and then improve him in the process. I think that it is imperative that Alabama have success on first and second down in the run game, because you do not want to become one-dimensional against Georgia on defense, and you certainly don't want to be in 3rd and +7 routinely.
Yeah, doesn't that come with Jalen Milroe again, who, like I was talking with Tyler Watts, the analyst on the Crimson Tide Sports Network, and he kept saying the 5-yard pass in the Iron Bowl this past week, the 5-yard pass is there every time, but he's not taking it. He's looking for a bigger play down the field. If there's 5 yards there, take the 5 yards. Take the 5 yards and just keep moving that thing until they start taking the quick 5-yard pass away. Don't you just have to take positive plays when they're there?
Absolutely. I mean, that's a general rule of thumb, regardless of who you are. Take what the defense gives you. You've heard it 100 times. I kind of liken the game plan to be one that would be reminiscent of what we saw Alabama look like offensively against Kentucky on the road a few weeks back.
Right.
Where you had designated quarterback run. You had some gap scheme run with Roydell Williams and the crew, and they were really effective in kind of doing what they wanted when they wanted to. But I think that a big part of this game plan is leaning on Jalen Milroe as the entire player, meaning that if you got to run him more than you'd like to, do it. He's that good. He's that dynamic. He's that difficult of a handful in the run game. And, I think he's made, and I would agree with Tyler Watts, I think up until the Iron Bowl, he'd made tremendous strides in that regard.
That's right.
We weren't talking about the offensive line the last several weeks. Well, why was that? Yeah, number one, they're playing better, but number two, he's helping them play better because he gets the ball out of his hand. Got to get back to that, but I think the early down production is really, really important. If Alabama becomes one-dimensional in the area that they're not the strongest, that's going to be a problem.
Yeah, I another commenter, it's flying by fast again, wants to ask, isn't that Kirby Smart's defense Achilles heel? It was when he was at Alabama, a running quarterback. So, I mean, that is when Kirby was here in Tuscaloosa, if you faced a mobile quarterback, that was always tougher on Kirby's defenses. Do you think that has transitioned over to Georgia? Is still the guy who can also tuck it and run it is a problem for the way he likes to play defense?
I think it's a problem for everybody in college football, and it's proven to be a problem for Kirby Smart and Nick Saban when the two of them were together. When you look at the quarterbacks that created problems for them, they were runners. Nick Marshall, all right, Johnny Manziel, Cam Newton. I mean, the list goes on and on. If you know where the quarterback's going to be all the time, I think that's the thing, as I mentioned earlier on in the show, the fact that Alabama knows defensively that they're not facing a runner at quarterback this week, that benefits Alabama. I think it's not just Kirby's Achilles heel. It's everybody in college football right now, because it puts so much strain on your defense, particularly when it comes to having adequate numbers in the box to defend that. Because once you do that, you create more one-on-ones on the outside because you don't have the pass coverage you would normally have.
Two more on that game. Dexter says Bama has a lot of talent. Hope we see it unleashed this weekend. Jace McClellan on crutches. As I was in the locker room, or by the locker room as he was leaving Jordan-Hare Stadium. Nick Saban saying yesterday, left foot injury, questionable this week. Next 48 hours will say a lot, but it looks like McClellan could be a no-go over in the SEC championship game, which Roydell and Jam still pretty good there, but the impact of no Jace McClellan, let's say he can't go, how big of an impact is it?
I think that's one of their deeper rooms. And I remember our crew when we were going into the game versus Arkansas, and we asked Coach about that. He goes, we think that room's really, really talented. And he also, he brought up a couple of freshmen that he was saying at the time. He goes, I wish we could play those guys more. They're talented enough to play more. We just don't have, there's not enough footballs to go around, not enough touches for all of them. So I liken it a little bit to the situation at Texas when they lost Jonathan Brooks. It was happened to be at a position where they've got great depth and talent. So the drop off is I don't think going to be significant. Obviously, you want to have your full complement of weapons, but that's a position I think Alabama's in good hands if you're going to have an injury.
Yeah, I personally think Jam's actually the best pass protector in the running back room at picking up blitzes and stuff. Royal Payne says Beck isn't as mobile, and Georgia hasn't faced a D-line like Alabama this year. Is two things. Is Beck a mobile quarterback? What can he do with his legs? And two, will this be the best team Georgia's faced all year? I think it is.
I think Carson Beck is athletic, but he's not a runner. I think those are two different things. He can navigate the pocket. He can create a second passing chance, but he's not a guy that's going to just take off and make multiple defenders miss and get to the edge and turn the corner and outrun everybody. That's not who he is. He's going to win with his arm, win with his mind. And I would agree with that sentiment. But, I mean, how many people do have Alabama's personnel on defense in the front seven? There's very few teams out there. I think Texas is one of them. Georgia's one of them. Depending on the day, Michigan, Ohio State. So it's a handful of teams that present that type of problem. I think the thing that's impressive about this Alabama group is the two interior guys, 96, 92, are really, really good. I mean, really good. And then you've got the edge guys that can collapse the pocket. And there's just a lot of scheme versatility with their edge and their outside linebackers. And they're just so active and disruptive that they put a ton of – I mean, look at the two losses that Ole Miss has. Look at who they're to, and look at why it happened, right? Alabama and Georgia, and completely got Ole Miss, which is a really good offensive football team, out of whack, off schedule, because they couldn't handle the front people. And that's where something's got to give in this coming matchup.